Welcome back, MTG Joe here. Today we are going to be looking at the weekly meta breakdown for the historic best of three format. So it's still pretty early, it's about a week since Modern Horizons 3 came out. As such, we are going to be focusing on like viable decks with the new cards. Some of the older decks in their existing shells are still putting up reasonable win rates. I want to focus on either existing archetypes that got upgrades, things that have changed, or net new archetypes. So that'll be where the focus is today. You're going to be seeing some of the win rates are fairly high. It's a small population right now. We'll get to the game count, but it's like 6,300 games of best of three from Diamond and Mythic, which isn't the largest sample size. Now, the thing is with Historic, it's not unusual for some folks who are specialists to have fairly high win rates. We'll get to like certain decks like the Yawg decks, where I know one individual in particular who's literally like 110 and 10 with the deck, and is usually fairly high win rate with it. So similarly, like in best of one, I'm like 33 and 3 with the Boros Energy deck, something like ridiculous like that. It's just it's working sometimes it doesn't. So focus less on the win rates, more on just like what's viable in terms of winning right now. As we get more population, we'll have a better idea of the decks. So jumping into it, we're going to look at just the play rate distribution in terms of popularity from Platinum to Mythic. If we go to Diamond right now, it's really only showing up as two decks, Mono Green and Wizards, which I don't think is a factual representation of the format. It's still pretty early into the month, so folks, actually I guess it's mid-month, but Boros Energy is about 20%, just a shade under 20. We have Devotion at 13, Wizards at 13, Vampires at 6, Azorius Control at 3, and Dimir Ninjas. Again, 6,300 games played, Diamond and Mythic rank. Putting the cap pretty low. I really just want to highlight decks, and then we'll kind of go from there. So two of the higher win rate decks are Boros Energy, and I think this is the first time we've ever seen 100% win rate. 29 games. Someone's literally 29 and 0. We don't have the full Mythic leaderboard, so I can't even pull that up right now. The one thing I would say, this mana base is a little ambitious, which I'm kind of surprised, but just kind of shows the power of the deck. I wouldn't be playing Clifftop Retreat. You should be playing the Horizon land, the one that the Pain land that lets you draw a card. It's skipping my brain right now. That might be in the other list. We can kind of highlight it. Also, like Mirror's Turf is probably not reasonable enough. Neither is Monumental Henge, I don't think. Henge you could kind of forgive, but you only have 2 planes. I also don't like Aether Hub in these lists. In the modern lists, they tend to play up higher on the curve. They play Flage, they play higher mana. When your deck's all 1 and 2 drops, especially 2 drops that are pretty mana intensive, it's a free energy doesn't really work out when you always have to pay energy just to hit your colors. But the core of this deck is leveraging the energy package. So you have Guide of Souls that gives you energy when creatures come into play, also gains you life. Amped Raptor, gets you free cast stuff. Stable Amulet's a card advantage engine. This version's on full set actually of Felia. Lets you blink your own stuff, blinks your opponent's stuff, gets you some reset value. White Orchid Phantom can start blowing up opponents' lands. The Ocelot's Pride just kind of snowballs every time you gain life at the end of your turn. You get to make tokens, equal to tokens come in. Johnny's my favorite card in the set, just really powerful, unique planeswalker. Gives you 2 bodies for 2, and then whenever a cat dies, you flip it, and then I've literally never activated a mode other than 0 on this, just make tokens and fireball your opponent. Galvanic Discharge, really innocuous, but just shifting down the cost of the previous kind of Bolt version to just being 1 mana. This lets you harness lightning. This one mana can be 1 damage, 2 damage, 3 damage. Late game, I've killed an Atraxa. I've killed Primeval Titan. It's pretty cool that way there. But yeah, like Clifftop Retreat's not where I'd be. Polaris of the Dream Den Companion. Deafening Silence, I'm not too sure what match you'd bring this in. A lot of the decks tend to be creature focused. There's not really a Phoenix deck against control. They're not usually multi-spelling per turn. Even Mono Green Devotion tends to be, once they pop off, tends to be a little bit more creature focused. So interesting to see that. The Dampening Sphere I could see as being reasonable. This kind of hits that. Disruptor Flute, naming activated abilities. but can also be used as a way to kind of just slow down your opponent. A License Source for Graveyard Hate. And Flame Sweep is another interesting choice here that I don't particularly agree with. It hits most of your stuff, and the Festivities for the mirror is better because it hits all the one toughness but doesn't hit your own stuff. This is usually played more in like a flyers deck. While you can technically make flyers, it's not guaranteed. So something just, it's an interesting choice all in all. Like they're winning with this deck, but I don't think this is the ideal configuration. So there's another version here. This one's 95% win rate. So right off the bat, like Sunbaked Canyon is the card I was mentioning. For my mana base, I'm actually, like, I don't like the Dens because Den wants you to play it turn 1 or 2, and you have so many white 1-drops that it doesn't really work out. I'm on 2 pathways, full set of Sunbaked Canyons, 2 Vistas, no Aether Hubs, one of each channel land, and then 2 of basics. This version here, we have Thelia. Goblin Bombardment's really nice as well. I've been starting to play with this one here. Lets you play around Divine Purge. While you leave your creatures, the tokens you can sack. It also lets you basically flip a Johnny on command by just sacrificing that goblin. Or that cat. The rest of the deck is pretty standard. Static Prisons, Jolted Awake as a way to kind of reanimate in the deck as well. Brave the Elements for protection. Fragment Realities removal, Meltdown for the artifact decks. I think 2 to 3 of Meltdown in any red base deck is where you want to be. Just pretty much obliterates all the affinity style decks. Invasion for the more controlling matchups. You have Sun Cleanser, which is a really cool tech card. So enters the battlefield, choose 1. Remove all counters from target creature. Can't get counters as long as Sun Cleanser's out, but it's more for the second bullet here. And it might be a little small on screen, but target opponent loses all counters. That player can't get counters for as long as Sun Cleanser remains on the battlefield. So really cool. You just stop them from being able to get energy. Unlicensed Hearse, I would probably just play Rest in Peace, but if you are interacting with your own stuff, might not be where you want to be, so the Hearse might be a better option there. Instead, like in turn, I've seen some play Soul Warden, some play Voice of the Blessed as well, so there's quite a few different variations you can play. Abzan Yawgmoth, 95%. So, sorry, Capella, I know you had it on private, but looks like your deck actually made it up into the stats. So, someone I was talking to in my Discord has been playing this deck a lot, kind of the innovator of a lot of the tech in Historic. We got a couple new cards here. So, we still have the Ramp package, Avacyn's Pilgrim, Blade, Halfling, Gilded Goose. We have 1 Guide to Soul, 1 Oscillates in here. We have 2 Sorin House Markov. Pretty easy to flip by just gaining some life in this deck, and then it just starts fireballing your opponent equal to life gain. Creating the food's reasonable as well, just with Gilded Goose lets you get the kind of mana accelerant, kind of like how Oko Goose used to play. Then Extort just kind of drains the remaining damage. We also have Eldrami Corsivigdal, I can't say that word. Lets you play cards off the top of your library. We saw Elven Core speed play at times. This could be tutored. Lets you also just kind of cheat into play cards. Knight of Arnavios kind of mixed into there as well. Sideboard, just Haywire Might, Artifact Enchantment Hate, Fatal Pushes, Peddlers like Thoughtseize effects, activated abilities, Graveyard Hate, Second Copy, Protection, Removal, kind of mixed in. We then go to Naya midrange, 88%. So this is the Primal Prayers combo deck. So Primal Prayers enters battlefield, you get 2 energy. You may cast creature spells with mana value 3 or less by paying energy rather than their mana cost, and you can do it at flash. So basically, with a Guide to Souls out, you can just keep casting Sigardian Evangels at instant speed, make it overwhelm the board, and then just attack your opponent in for lethal. So that's kind of like the combo there. You have Recruiter the Guards to help you find your combo pieces, Amulet, same idea, removal, energy, and finding lands. So just a bunch of pieces to find your combo, and then you just kind of combo off Jar Soul can also rebuy some value here. I think Althrix from MTGA Zone got to like 15 Mythic, something like that, with either this exact list or a variation of it. But again, just Artifact Enchantment Hate, tax effects for heavy removal, Shove Aside for removal of your opponent's creatures, Coral Harpooner for flyers, good against like wizards, activated abilities, Graveyard Hate, Hand Hate, removal, and then Tajich just for heavy kind of removal decks. Hard to deal with this one. Gets around Legions or Divine Purge as well. Fun and Brawl. My Brawl commanders. Rakdos Vampires, 87. Again, the percentages are a little inflated, but look at like what the decks are actually winning with. So we had the Vampire package, Sorin, Vein Ripper. We have Troll in here, and kind of similar to Timeless. While not a reanimate, we have Persist, where you get to return target non-legendary creature from your graveyard to the battlefield with a 1/1 -1/1 counter. So Vein Ripper as a 5/4 flyer, all that text is still quite the body. Same with Troll. A couple copies of Bogart Trawler, just a land that can also be used as Bazooka Bog kind of style effect. You have the Blood Gas, Goblin Bombardment package with all the cheap creatures as well. So self-mill, persist, get back a big fatty, or cheated in that way. Seasoned Pyromancer also have Arena of Glory for haste, and then just a bunch of utility lands. Removal, combo, Graveyard Hate, Hand Hate, removal, sweepers. Very clean. Mono Green Devotion, so pretty stock list. We're just getting access to Fanatic of Ronus, so Mana Dork for 2, but also if you have Ferocious, which is a lot of the creatures in this deck, you just get them randomly add 4 mana. It could also be Eternalized, so you get the value from milling it over with Cavalier of Thorns. So just another powerful effect that helps you ramp into your bigger threats. Pretty much eliminating the 1-drops in this deck. You also have Disciple of Freyles, a land that also could just incidentally draw you a bunch of cards and gain you life, which is useful. We have Shifting Woodland as another way to kind of get value out of your graveyard by copying a permanent. We then, how does this work? So shifting target becomes a copy of target permanent in your graveyard on the turn. Activate only if there are 4 more cards. I'm not too sure. Because this is already in play, it doesn't enter with loyalty counter. So if you become a copy of this, like of a Planeswalker, I think it just dies. I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure, but let me know in the comments. And then just basically just a whole bunch of situational artifacts. Notable new ones is Vexing Bauble. Players are cheating on mana. It's the way to kind of tax that. And then against like Wizards, you have Arasta. Nothing too innovative outside of that, but the Fanatic, the Disciple, and the Woodlands in the main board. Sorry, I have allergies right now, so I might be a little congested. Nothing like super. I've never seen this list before, but it's 5-color humans, but it's like base white humans. You just got all the dual lands within the deck. So just a bunch of humans that exist: Peddlers, Sentinels, Avacyn's Pilgrim, Coppercoat. We've seen like mono white, black humans, Thalia, Heretic, Cathar, Reflector Mage, the Pearl Collector. So Ruby Collector and Jet Collector seem to play in other formats. Timeless in this. This one here, it's a 3 mana, 3/3 Death Touch. Lifelink, being a pre-combat main phase. If you gain 4 more life this turn, conjure Mox Pearl, and then another creature perpetually gains lifelink. Interesting card. Mantis Rider, Flying Vigilance, Haste, Jewel Mine, provide some card advantage, some Adelins, and then Coco's to find you the stuff. Fragment Reality is removal, Containment Priest for anything being cheated into play. Notably, this hits your stuff as well, so if a non-token creature were to enter the battlefield, if it wasn't cast, exile it instead. So if you collect a company, your creature will get exiled. Arena, Graveyard Hate, Protection, Hand Hate with the Peddler. I'd honestly just be on 4 Peddlers main. Lavinia for anything trying to cheat on mana, Melee Mage for activated ability, removal with Kitesail Arsonist, and against more aggressive decks, you have a Collector. Then go to Azorius Affinity, 70%. So this is kind of the bigger version. We've seen like the Retrofitter Foundry decks. Again, with this one here, you should be playing 4 Foundries, and you should be playing 4 Ornithopters. Like, these are the best. This is what kind of the basis of the deck is. Play 4 before you play something like Pakal Pakal. What a funny name. Akal Pakal. You got Emery's in here, Metallic Rebukes, Thousand Sun Smithy, but you're kind of playing, especially with this deck here, you want more cheaper stuff anyway. So the Ornithopter is just a free cast for Kappa Cannoneer. Has Improvise, so you can use your artifacts to cast it. And then whenever another artifact enters the battlefield under your control, you put a counter on Kappa, and it can't be blocked. You also have Thought Monitor to fill. So both of these want to reward you for playing cheaper stuff, so I've just played more 0-drop. Like the full set of Ornithopters, just get rid of this Akal Pakal, I would say. You can play the artifact lines. Darksteel probably should be a full 4 of. One thing to note in this format, you can't go full board with like the indestructible tap lands because Divine Purge is a card. Dusk Rose, Reliquaries, more removal. Fragment versus removal against red-based aggro decks. You have Cerulean Drake, Dampening Sphere versus like the mono-green decks. Lavinia for cheating mana decks. Reprieve for like bigger mid-range decks or control decks. Dismember as a removal spell, or like it's removal when you can't play black-based removal. Basically, just pay 1 mana for it. And then lastly, Dimir Reanimator, kind of dredgy value engine with Nightmare. So this card's actually been pretty impressive. I faced off someone with a Rakdos deck, just bringing back Mayhem Devil every turn, which is kind of gross. So 2 mana comes into play. You get 3 energy, pay X energy, sacrifice creature, return Nightmare to its hand, and then you get to return creature with that cost from your graveyard to your hand. So you can just keep resacking like Bloodgas. Blood Soaked Champion could come back from the graveyard. Supplier fills your yard. And then whenever cards come into play from your graveyard, Tour draws you a card. Prize Amalgam comes back from your graveyard. Psychic Frog lets you discard cards, get flying, gives you more card advantage. So you have like removal, disruption, hand hate with the Thought Seed. So it's not all as like the dredge decks, which typically don't have a great best of 3 matchup. They're reasonable in best of 1, but tend to be a bit slower in best of 3 just because like a Rest in Peace just disrupts you. Your sideboard, just hand hate, removal, activate abilities, spell piercer, disruption. Surgicals is kind of combo hate, removal, and then Drown in the Luck as counter and removal, and then Witch's Vengeance really good against like wizards, stuff like that. So tip of the week. Let me know what you've been playing, what you've been liking. Historic's been super fun to me right now. I've been enjoying it more than Timeless. But interested to see if you got any sweet Eldrazi decks, any kind of cool things like that. We'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching.